Do you ever wonder why some girls seem to easily get princess treatment from every man, but you constantly have to beg for just the bare minimum? Isn't it confusing to look at those women and think, what could possibly be so different about her that she gets from men what I can't? Well, what if I told you it could be a lot easier for you to receive princess treatment from men if you actually understood why we even give it in the first place? If you want to learn how this works, then join me on today's entire show where we'll be discussing the full guide to princess treatment. That way you don't have to keep looking at other women and wishing you had their relationship instead of your own. So we're going to start off with presentation for point number one. We all have different sides to our personality. We are what I like to call three-dimensional beings, meaning that we're not just one person all the time in one way. There are different times you might meet us and come across us, and you might experience something totally different about me based on when you see me, how you see me, and how I feel that day or what I've been through that day. That's not a crime. Now, the reason I'm mentioning this and the reason I'm mentioning presentation is because we're not focusing when it comes to receiving princess treatment from men. We're not focusing on changing who you are completely. We're not even focusing on trying to drastically make all of these adjustments that you end up being someone totally different than you've already been your entire life. What we're focusing on doing is understanding what men are looking for and how they make assumptions or build your character in their mind and how they choose to treat you based on what they see from you. Now, when we understand that and we break that down a little bit more, all we're going to do for you is we're going to highlight very specific qualities of you. Think of it like I'm shining a flashlight on specific qualities of you that I want these men that come across you to be able to see of you and experience with you in the process of dating you and getting to know you. Because this will allow them, when you can shine this light on particular areas of your personality. Remember, there's lots to you. But we want to focus on shining light in particular areas that will inspire and motivate the men that are meeting you and dating you to give you the princess treatment that you're looking for. Because this whole concept and idea is not about twisting men's arm and trying to force them to treat you a particular way. It's about, and this is where I come in your life, it's about understanding what motivates and inspires them to even want to give away princess treatment to particular women, right? And when you understand why they would do that, or the things that they're looking for or to identify with in their relationship with you, in order to give that to a woman, all we have to do is focus on putting a light on those areas of your already existing personality and allowing those men to see that and allowing the rest to take place. Point number two is the princess versus the peasant. If you were in medieval times, I just dropped you in the middle of some random kingdom, okay? Like you're in Game of Thrones or something like that. And you were walking around and you needed to identify the difference between the women who were princesses and the women who were peasants. I want all of you to answer for me because we're gonna work on this together. How would you go about identifying the difference between the women who were princesses and the women who were peasants? And this is what's so amazing about this concept, because it directly applies to you and how you're going to receive princess treatment from men. See, when I asked all of you some of the things you would be looking for if you were trying to identify the difference between a princess and a peasant, all of the things you guys so intelligently mentioned in the chat here are the exact type of things men are looking for and identifying when they're categorizing you in one of these two places. So when we think about this logically, and we think about how you would go about identifying the difference between two different types of people, all we have to do is copy and paste the things that you would be looking for in identifying the difference between a medieval princess and a medieval peasant and apply that to the modern day and figure out how we can put our focus in each one of these different places and make sure that we shine the right light on you, right? That the men will be able to identify you as a princess instead of a peasant. Because the thing that will happen, similar in my example analogy of me dropping you into Game of Thrones or something like that, some medieval kingdom, the thing that will happen to you is once you identify if a woman is a princess or a peasant, you will change and adjust your approach to that woman based on the factors you've used to identify which one you would categorize her as. And it's the exact same thing that the men will do with you. as they identify based on these different factors, and there's even more than this, right? Based on these different factors that they'll use to identify which one you are, once they categorize you, then they begin to approach you based on that categorization. So then the question becomes, how do we ensure that all of these key points that they will use to identify which one you are, you hit every key point, and then the princess treatment can come simply because he will now approach you based on how he sees you and what he identifies you as. See, the way that you talk about yourself can really help men identify who you are, what type of person you are, whether you are a princess or a peasant. Why? Because the way that you talk about yourself is directly correlated to the picture you see when you look in the mirror. You see, because a princess knows that she's a princess, and the peasant knows that they're a peasant. See, in a weird way, the way that you think of yourself in your mind will also represent outwardly to other people. And so when you are talking to men, it's very important that the way you talk about yourself is like a princess. But what does that actually look like in reality? The mistake that some of you might make is when you go out on a date with a guy, you feel like, well, okay, this is meant to be my best friend. We're supposed to be close. I'm not supposed to hide anything. I'm just supposed to be super upfront. While that might not necessarily be a bad thing, this is how some of you will go about your dating life. You'll go on your date and you'll say, oh my gosh, I look so ugly today. Look at this pimple on my forehead. I feel so bloated on this date. I can barely fit in this dress. These jeans don't fit me right. I just look horrible today. I've had a horrible day and I just feel disgusting. And it's just, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. And this is just so hard. And last week, it was just such a hard day. This is like the first date I've ever had in like 8 months. And I haven't. This is a problem. What you're doing is, you might not realize it because you're just in the spirit of just saying how you feel, but you're talking about yourself like you're a peasant. You might not realize it. And as you're speaking and you're speaking more, he's realizing and realizing more, oh, you're a peasant. Not because I forced you to be a peasant, but that's how you view yourself, right? You think of yourself as being bottom of the barrel. When you're describing yourself as disgusting and unattractive and your pimples and you're bloated and this girl's so much prettier and you can't get anything and your life sucks, you're not doing something for yourself or this relationship that benefits you. You're actually showing him exactly how you're like the bottom of the barrel. No guy wants you. You're not desirable. And it's not even him that's saying that. It's you saying that about yourself. And some of you might consider that just being honest about how you feel about yourself. But you don't realize that this self-talk is a mirror. And you're actually, in the process of talking like that, you're literally showing him that mirror. You're showing him what you see of yourself when you look in the mirror. And when he sees that picture, he agrees with you, he shakes your hand and he says, perfect, I will categorize you and think of you exactly how you think of yourself. So you think of yourself as a peasant, you're bloated, you're disgusting, pimples all over your face, no one wants you, no one wants to date you, you can barely hold a man. Sure, I will agree with you, and I will definitely treat you that same way as you see yourself in the mirror, right? Vice versa, if you think of yourself as a princess, then you need to make sure you talk about yourself like you are a princess. It's not to say that you won't have insecurities. It's not to say that there aren't certain things that might make you feel nervous about yourself, or that you do, or twitches or tics that you might have that you think make you a little bit quirky or different. I'm not saying you can't be insecure, but what I am saying is we want you to talk about yourself as if you're a princess, because men are taking that information in to decide if you are a princess. And once they categorize you in one of these different categories, they will then treat you based on how they identify you. Similar to you, if you were dropped into the medieval times and forced to categorize women on who's a princess and who's a peasant, make sure that what the words that are coming out of your mouth, right, from the very beginning, speak towards the princess in you, not the peasant in you. Not saying that there will never be a time for you to share your emotions and feelings and insecurities, but what we want to make sure is we paint a picture that you are a princess first, and then as our relationship grows and progresses with that man, then we can share some of our insecurities with that man. Ignoring the drawing here, in all seriousness. If that's so for you, that very quickly you would use clothing to identify the difference between a woman who is a princess in medieval times and a woman who is a peasant, then we have to make sure that we attach that same importance to you and the way that you dress. See, obviously, we don't have peasants in today's world, but we can think of peasants instead of thinking of them as like poor people or something like that. We think of them today as desperate women who have a low value, and because of their lack of value, they're very desperate for attention from men. They're very desperate to be seen and admired by men. They're very desperate to be with any man whatsoever because they need that, because no one wants them. When you get dressed in the morning, in the afternoon, in the night, when you go out, you have to ask yourself, what am I portraying in the way that you're dressing? Now, I'm a man, so I'm not gonna tell you how you should or shouldn't dress. But I will tell you that if you're gonna receive princess treatment from men, remember how we said we're shining a flashlight on different parts of your personality and who you are to make sure that the men see that of you, and based on how they see you, they identify you in a particular category and then they approach you based on that category? We wanna make sure that everything is in alignment, including and especially in the way that you dress, because that's the first way for men to identify how do you see yourself, how do you feel about yourself, and what type of person and woman are you? From that, I will then choose how I approach you based on what I think you are and how you think of yourself and the type of treatment that you're expecting. So I know that this is a little funny to draw out with the person with ripped clothes, but I'm not talking about wearing ripped clothes. Understand that in a modern day, the peasant woman can be wearing clothes that are expensive. And understand that in the modern day, the peasant woman can still be wearing clothes that aren't ripped or smelly. But understand, even if your clothes aren't necessarily ripped or smelly, you can still be communicating a very important key message to men in the way that you dress. So the reason I'm pointing all of this out, and the reason that this is an important point that I want to kind of really have you sit in, is because you have to get to a point where you look at yourself in the mirror and you have an honest conversation with yourself about who you are and what you want to represent. And once you answer that question for yourself of who you are and what you want to represent, you have to have an honest question to yourself and say, is how I present myself actually in alignment with how I want to be approached and how I want to be seen? Because if the answer to that question is no, that there is misalignment there, well, then now we've identified one of your major problems here. Now, if you don't care about princess treatment, it's not that important to you, or you're just like, Thompson, I'm gonna dress how I want, I'm gonna do what I want, I'm gonna say what I want, it doesn't matter to me, I get to do what I want, it doesn't matter what the men want. Sure, if that's how you wanna make it, that's how you wanna play it, go ahead, do your own thing. But if you're thinking maybe there's a little bit of misalignment here, maybe I'm not representing myself in the way that I want to be treated or approached, then you have some things to think about, and I'll just let that sit with you. Point number 5 is about the environment. Now, the reason I say a lot of you aren't going to like this point either, it's going to point out some things to you that you may or may not want to actually accept. Remember how we talked about the princess and the peasant and how you would identify the difference between a medieval princess and a medieval peasant? See, one of the things that I put there on that board earlier was environment, because you would assume in the places where all of the peasants would hang out and be is the same type of places where all the peasants would hang out and be. And you would also assume that the princesses would not be hanging out in the places that the peasants are hanging out. Obviously, like I said before, we don't have peasants, so to speak, in our modern day, but we do have desperate women. I want you to join in on me so that we can see if we're on the same page here. Tell me, if I'm describing modern day peasant women as women who are desperate and low quality, tell me as a woman, if you were thinking to yourself, put yourself in a man's shoes, where do you think most of the desperate and low quality women would be spending a lot of their time? Just shoot something out. It doesn't have to be perfectly right. I want you to tell me, if you put yourself in a man's shoes, think to yourself, I'm a man today. Where would I find the most desperate and low quality woman? I see the club, the bars, right? I seen someone earlier say dating apps, the internet, right? So it said in church, a dive bar, a club, right? local bars, dating apps. Look at what a lot of you said. I really want you to take that in. Look at what you yourself said about where men would be able to find the most low quality and desperate women. And then ask yourself, am I spending my time in all of the places where all of the peasant women can be found? Because if I'm spending my time in all of the places where the peasant women can be found, what are those men going to think of me if all of the other women surrounding me are peasants? So this is why I say this can be a little bit of a painful realization, right? Because when you come to this realization, sometimes it can become a lot more clear to you where you're going wrong. Now, I'm not saying, right, that going to a club or a bar, right? So we'll put a line here. I'm not saying going to a club, a bar, or being on a dating app means you're a bad person. But if you're saying to yourself that the men who are looking for low quality women, peasant women, desperate women, are going to these places to find them, and you're spending a majority of your time meeting men in these places, well, no wonder you struggle to receive princess treatment. You're surrounding yourself where all the men are looking for peasant women. And so there's an easy assumption made on those on the man's part, that when he meets you in this environment, that you're just like all the other peasant women. Now, I know some of you are asking a very important question. I see someone just asked it. Where do the princesses go? The reality of it is, and this might be a little bit abstract to some of you, the princesses go to places where they can learn. The princesses go to places where they can grow. And the princesses go to places where they can invest. And I'm not talking about invest money. I'm talking about invest into themselves. Tell me in the chat, actually, because I want you guys to do some thinking. Where are some of the places based on this criteria that you could go and spend some time where you could either be learning, you could be growing, whether it be emotionally, physically, whatever the case may be, or you could be investing in yourself? Tell me, just give me some. I see some people say the gym. I seen someone else say college, the library, the museum, social clubs, right? Conferences. The reason I say that is because a lot of you are smart and you know the different places you can go. But here's the thing. And this is what I have to be honest with you, because I've experienced this as well, okay? And I know it to be true as well. See, it's harder to go to these places because they're not as accessible or they're not as popular. But understand that the reason that these places are more popular is because they're more accessible to the masses. Why are they more accessible to the masses? Because it's peasant behavior. The reality of this in life, okay, I'm just gonna tell you this is like kind of like a fatherly, brotherly figure here. The reality of it is in life, not all women will be treated the same. Now, I know that might be disappointing, but you have a choice to make. You can get treated like this woman, but you have to understand how to separate yourself from these women. Because someone will get treated like a peasant, but you're in the players club and you're in the minority trying to learn something and grow. So let's make that you that gets treated like a princess and allow the rest of the women who can't figure that out and are going to spend their time in the peasant areas, let them suffer. Okay? At the end of the day, you got to take care of yourself first. This is a very important concept. So number 6 is about the show. So you know how we have in tandem show and tell? This show part, and what I'm referring to, is when you go out and you meet a man, you want to be able to tell him and show him essentially about how you have been approached by other men. Now, I'm not talking about approached in the sense of, oh, another guy asked me out on a date yesterday, or another guy did this for me, or did that for me. What I'm talking about is we want to help men understand from the very beginning, because everything has to be in alignment. Your self-talk, the way you dress, we want to help them understand from the very beginning that you are used to a certain type of treatment from people in your life in general, okay? There's a particular type of treatment that you have come to expect and has become familiar to you in life. So how does this work practically? When you go out on your date, right? As you're having conversation about your life and activities and your past and where you've been, I want you to sneak in some stories here rather than trauma dumping. I want you to sneak in some stories here about things that your ex did for you. And specifically things that your ex did for you that were over the top, that would be considered princess treatment. So for example, Yeah, he asked you, have you ever tried Italian food before? Yeah, actually, when I was dating my ex, he did like this whole big surprise thing and took me to an Italian restaurant. He had like flowers and everything and rose petals for Valentine's Day because he knows I love Italian. And that was like, I really loved that restaurant, right? And you sneak multiple stories like that. You don't have to keep saying my ex, my ex, my ex. But when you sneak some stories in like that, you're showing him that you have come to expect particular type of treatment. Now, I know the very first thing some of you are saying, Tomisin, my ex treated me like trash. He didn't do nothing for me. Didn't take me out anywhere. He wasn't nice to me. Didn't compliment me. He gave me zero treatment the entire relationship. I have no stories to tell. Okay. If you don't have a story to tell about a past partner, in an example of how someone gave you princess treatment, then you're gonna use some fam or you're gonna use a friend, okay? Right? Because all we're trying to do is we're trying to show him that you have come to expect particular treatment from just people in your life. That people in your life go out of their way for you, or try and do nice things for you, or try and, just help you. You live the soft life, right? That's the life that you've already come to understand and know before you even met him. And it doesn't have to be something super extravagant, right? It can be something like, oh, my friends, they threw me a surprise party and brought a bunch of food and it was a really nice, amazing, awesome thing. Or it can be something even smaller like, oh, when my dad knows that I'm kind of upset or stressed out, he goes and he buys me ice cream, my favorite ice cream on the way back from work, right? These are the type of stories that you can just throw in there, even if you don't have an ex story or you feel uncomfortable talking about your ex, that will still represent the same thing. I live the soft life. With our point number 7, don't make this mistake, which a lot of you might make. When you start dating a guy and he's giving you good treatment, or he's talking about how amazing you are, or he's starting to see all of the things that we've been wanting you to emphasize. And now he's feeling like, oh, I really like you. I want to do things for you. And this is the thing that will happen to guys sometimes when they really start liking you and they start snowballing in this direction. They'll be like, wow, like not only are you beautiful, but your aura is there. I just want to do things for you. I want to be with you. I want to talk to you. I want to see you. I want everything you, okay? They'll just start yapping about how much they want you. Cool, right? Your strategy is working, but you don't want to make the mistake of not properly feeding this cycle so that this can continue. What do I mean by feed it? See, when he starts to communicate that, hey, I want to give you princess treatment, whether he's saying that or doing that, and telling you how, oh my God, I just want to keep giving and keep doing this and keep doing that. I don't want you to say, oh, I don't deserve that. Me, oh, I'm so shy. I don't think I can take that. That's too much. That's too big. That's too expensive. That's too, no. When he communicates that he's becoming more obsessed with you, you say, oh, you're becoming more obsessed? Why are you so obsessed? Tell me. What is it about me that's making you so obsessed? Is it my dump truck? Is it my face? Is it my amazing personality? I don't know. And then when he tells you that, right, this is part of you feeding it. When he tells you that, oh my God, you don't understand, like being around you, it's just like, I just want to breathe you in. And I've never felt like this around another woman before, right? This is when all of this is working, right? This is what will happen. I've never felt like this before being around another woman. I can't believe it. I feel like I just want to do everything for you. I just want to be the man that you need. So then you're going to say, oh, wow. So crazy to hear that from you. Wow. That's so sweet and kind of you to say. I appreciate that so much. And he'll be like, I just don't know. I don't know what you do to me. I don't know what you say to me. And you just, I don't know either. I'm so lost. I'm so confused. I just try my best to be myself. But like, tell me, like, describe to me, what is it that you love so much? And let him keep going on this cycle. Because when you can feed it like that, you're also aiding him. This is going to sound very strange, but you're aiding him in convincing himself of why he's so obsessed with you. That will lead to him being more obsessed with you and continue to treat you that way. What I don't want to happen is I don't want you to, one, ever discourage him from giving you princess treatment. And number two, I don't ever want you to come across as if you don't feel like you're deserving of that. So this is why this is a very important balance to have. Because as you're feeding it, you don't want to come across as arrogant, right? The point of this and feeding this is not to be like, oh, you're giving me princess treatment and that's exactly what I expect from you. That's exactly the type of treatment I expect from you. That's exactly the type of words and actions I expect. You don't want to make it seem like, oh, if you don't do this, then you're cooked, or I'm forcing you to do it. You want to make it seem like, oh, as I'm receiving this amazing treatment from you, I appreciate it. I'm not saying that this is the first time someone's ever done something nice for me. I appreciate it, but I also am too naive, too feminine, too soft to really even know what it is I'm doing that's making you so obsessed with me. I just don't know. I don't know. I wish I knew, but I can't figure it out. Can you, big strong man, explain to me why you're so obsessed with me? I'm so feminine and so soft. I can't figure it out for myself. See, this is going to sound weird, but this is part of your aura. Okay? Right? That's part of your aura, is having men feel like you're not doing it on purpose. I'm giving you advice. That's going to sound very weird and strange to do. And when you're actually doing it and it's working, you're going to feel so silly, but it works. Okay? Part of getting princess treatment is pretending like you don't know why all these men are giving you so much princess treatment. And I don't mean pretending like you don't know why from the standpoint of saying you don't deserve it, but just letting them be obsessed, letting them treat you well. You're obviously going to be appreciative for it, but you're also not going to be like, oh, I'm forcing you to do this, right? Oh, wow, you did something so nice of me. How kind of you to go out of your way, right? Let the emphasis be on the fact that he went out of his way despite you never even asking him to do anything for you, never forcing him, never trying hard, never doing anything to make this happen. Keep emphasizing that idea and your naivete towards the situation of why he's doing so much for you, right? That, yeah, I've never strategized or tried anything in my life. I've just shown up as me. And I promise you, it will lead to more obsession because they'll feel like you're so magical that just walking around with you is fairy dust and you've sprinkled fairy dust upon him that he can't control himself. It's a great place for men to be. They like to live in their own fantasy too, okay? So you don't have to tell them that you've been learning all these strategies from me and picking up on how men think and what they want and what turns them on and what they desire. Just let them think your aura and your vibe and your essence has made you who you are. And let them live in that obsession of being with you and being around you and wanting to breathe you in, okay? It's great for you. You'll continue to get princess treatment and he won't even know your deepest, darkest secret.